Yo, what's up? Pop this out. Okay, let's pull this up and remind ourselves where we are at. So I was doing some experimentation. I had about an hour this afternoon. Um, After reading a few things that I got sent to me from Twitter. So we ended the last stream by removing the view transitions from the application because we couldn't quite get them working in a way that was better than just having them not working at all. There were a couple of problems. So let me stash this code and let's come back here and let's turn view transitions back on for a bit and talk about the problems that we had. So here we're on the index view for our tasks, and we have our links here to a show view for a particular task. And this view transition doesn't look too bad. It's not exactly what Superlist is doing, but that's serviceable. The problems come when we start interacting with this page. So let's jump to a different task. That's noisy. Noisy, don't love that. Then we have the problem of toggling the completed at value. That's super noisy. Don't love that. This, okay. So when we are transitioning between the index view and the show view, the view transition makes sense. Hey, what's up, Avi? But whenever we are transitioning between show views, whether that's task 1 to task 2, or staying on task 2, but just updating some bit of state, having a view transition is noisy and annoying. So I was trying to read up on like what are the tools that are available to us for view transitions. And just as like a quick refresher, we have somewhat limited tools because the way that the browser is driving view transitions is by taking a snapshot of the page. I mean, quite literally, it's pretty much akin to a screenshot. And then, so the screen that we're leaving, then we navigate to the new screen, takes a screenshot of the new screen, and we can do some CSS animations between these images. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but it's close to that, right? So we don't have like a full DOM available to us is the key detail here. So I had a couple of things shared with me that were useful. So one of them was this documentation page from the Chrome docs that has a section on changing the transition depending on the type of navigation. So here they talk about, right, like sometimes the navigation from one particular type of page to another should have a specifically tailored transition, or a back navigation should be different to a forward navigation. And the best way to handle these cases is to set a class name on HTML or the document element. So they don't get into it super deeply here, but effectively, like, you can think of it as like the HTML, the document element, is the one DOM element that is available to you, that you can like use a CSS selector on to scope your styles, right? So instead of just having, I mean, this is implicitly the star selector, right? Instead of just selecting all view transitions, you can add a more specific selector, but the only DOM element you're going to have is the HTML element. So this is like a key constraint. And they talk about two different like types of navigation. So one is like moving from a particular type of page to another, and the other is like the direction of navigation. Turbo, let's go into the handbook here and look at view transitions. Turbo gives us some information to allow us to control view transitions for that second case, right? Like depending on the direction of the transition, right? So right here, it adds a data turbo visit direction attribute to the HTML element to indicate the direction of the transition. And it can have one of the following three values: forward, back, or none. So this is helpful, but it's not quite sufficient for our case, right? Because we don't just want to change the view transition in the case of like, oh, it should have this kind of animation when we're going from one page and clicking a link and navigating to a new page, and we should do a different kind of transition when we're hitting the back button. In our case, we really care about the context of the navigation. But this idea of not using a class attribute, but using data attributes makes sense to me. It obviously fits with how Turbo is structured. So like fundamentally, what we want to do is we need to provide data attributes on the HTML element that provide us with a sufficient amount of information to allow our CSS selectors to only perform view transitions when we are transitioning between index and show views. So I found some inspiration for how to solve this problem from a second link that was shared to me on Twitter. And this is a glitch demo from Jake Archibald, who is a DevRel for the Chrome team. And he's got a whole bunch of different examples here of different ways of doing view transitions. And number 7 here gave me some interesting inspiration just to sort of show you what it's doing. And we can view the code here. So this is like pure JavaScript. This is like SPA style because there isn't a backend. So he's driving the navigation through JavaScript. But if we come in here, he has this utility function on link navigate. He pulls this out of utils. We can go and look at it really briefly. It takes a callback. So the callback is like, what do we do when there is a navigation event? And that callback is past the from path and the to path. So just to give a little bit of context, in the simplest case, this is like the default browser case, right? It does a crossfade. You don't really care much about anything, right? So it's like he gets the page content of where we're going. He starts the view transition, and then he updates the DOM to the new content, right? And the browser will do the crossfade. In this case, we see it's a little bit more complicated, right? We're still getting that content of where we're heading, but we call this function get navigation type. And then we have some if conditions. So if the navigation type is gallery to cat, right, index to show, then we're going to set the view transition name banner image on the thumbnail. And then when we are like creating our transition, when it is cat to gallery, show to index, we set that there as well. So this got the brain juices going a little bit. Hey, Block. Thanks for coming to hang out, and thanks for the compliment. I try to rock. This method signature got me thinking. So we aren't going to be able to like do the navigational in JavaScript, right? But this is what we need, right? Like we need to be able to know the navigation type. And we can understand the navigation type if we have the from path and the to path. So I saw this, and I saw the Turbo handbook, and some ideas started forming. So I wanted to understand like what is onLink navigate doing here. So we can like jump down to the utils script file. This intercepts navigations, right? So on the window.navigation object, we add an event listener for the navigate event. And in that context, we can pull out the URL of where we're going. We have available to us on the location object where we're at. And so we have from and to. I originally started doing some research to see, okay, is there a corresponding, where were we? Is there a corresponding turbo event to the navigate event? So I look through the turbo events, and we've got turbo visit, which could work. It gives us the URL of where we're going. Turbo load is at the end, but it has a URL. Could work. But honestly, what I did in experimentation was to just start off with this, because Turbo is going to use the DOM's navigation APIs anyway, push and pop history. So what did I do? Let's okay, undo this change. Get back to empty. Come on. There we go. Okay, let's pull this stuff out. So this is me trying some stuff with before visit. Wasn't quite working for me. But the exact same handler, so navigation, add event listener, navigate, we can do the same basic thing, right? Like get the to URL, get the from path, and then instead of taking them and passing them as arguments to a callback function in JavaScript, we can set them as data attributes on the document element. So I put from path and to path on the document element as data attributes. Simple enough. What does that then allow me to do? So this is duplicative here. This is some stuff I was starting to experiment with, so let's just comment that out. It allows us to write a CSS selector like this. So instead of like previously what we had, wrong keyboard shortcut there, was this, right? Though, yeah, I think so. It's scoped to the aside element, which, if you'll recall from our last stream, is this. This is the aside. We call this main, and this aside. So we scope it to the aside, but we are running the transition animation for every navigation, right? And what we want to do is we want to limit it to only navigations between index and show. So what does this CSS selector do? So we're going to do a negation. So we want anytime the HTML element, which is sort of implicit here, it's like the only element we have, does not have a data from path attribute where the value starts with, that's what this operator means, tasks with a slash coming after it. Because what we can see, let's inspect here. Now we've got this code back. When we are talking about the index route, right, there is no final slash. So a show route slash some ID, index route, tasks, no slash, no ID. So this says we will animate transitions so long as the navigation does not start on any show page. That's what the CSS selector is encoding. So what that means is that when we are navigating from the index view to the show view, we will see an animation. But when we navigate from the show view to another show view, no animation. And when we navigate from the show view back to itself, no animation. Or no view transition animation, just to be more precise. Now, this does have, this selector as it's written, does have the side effect that when we navigate from show back to index, we actually, that did look like it had an animation. Let's look at this. We go I just want to comment this out really briefly and remind myself what it looks like. So I think this is the default view transition that we are looking at right here. So we're not applying a more specific just making sure that's all commented out. Yep. So that is a quick explanation of what I was playing around with for about an hour this afternoon. The stuff that I have commented here is very early experiments coming from a different demo here. Might have been directional transition. Yeah, that animation looks, hey, Marco, this animation looks a little bit closer to what we had, but don't want to get too lost. Just as a quick refresher, have made some progress on the view transition stuff by learning from Jake Archibald primarily. So what we have done is we have added a navigate, a event listener, and in there we have access to the URL of where we're going. On the location object, we have access to where we're at presently before we go there. And we set data attributes on the document element, on the HTML element, for the from path and the to path. This allows us to write a CSS selector like this to scope our view transition for our sort of fade out sliding view transition to say, only apply that view transition animation when we are not coming from a show page. And actually, this might be worth adding a comment. Only apply the view transition animation when the navigation is not coming from a task show page. Is what that does. And so that means we get the slide fade, and we get the crossfade when we go back, but when we navigate between shows, we just get that. Wonder if you could make it more generic with the controller actions. Yes, we probably could. So that would require, let's comment here. We can do it as data attributes. I think we have controller name and what is it? Action name or controller action? we have these helper methods that Rails gives us. I will try this and we will see. Controller action is not it. So it is action name. So we can throw these data attributes, which are always going to be, the 2 mapping to 2. So we go here, we're going 2 tasks show. That's not updating. Yeah, that's not getting morphed. It's not changing. Turbo navigations are, hey, Justin, what's up? Are not updating that. Does it on the body? It might, but if it's on the body, I don't think it helps us. So I think that we only have access to the HTML element to scope view transitions. But here we are, down here. Index, show, index. Yeah, it's coming in on body. We can try. So the stuff I read in the documentation only talks about the HTML element. So this is an inference, not something I know to be true. Data controller name, tasks, and data action name, index, and let's make this super slow so we can tell if it's working. Doesn't seem to be working. So Turbo does morph it when it's on the body, but the body is not available to us to scope our view transitions. And Turbo is not morphing it on the document. So a conundrum. But that's okay. Baby steps, baby steps. Let's commit this though. Not that though. Let me pull out all of these comments. Scope, the sliding view transition animation to specific navigation type. Task index to tasks show. This here is the meta attribute that you can add to turn on prefetching. Where did I talk about this? Instant click. You disable it. It is on by default. Whoops, okay. We want to get rid of this. Sorry. Oopsie daisy. Let's see if that is working. Yeah, that's working. Nice. Okay, so I'm actually okay with not continuing to slam my head against the wall of view transitions at this exact moment, because it's not terrible. And we solved like the major terrible problem. And we just have a lot of functionality to build. So I am keen to focus on the functionality and progressively enhance the experience with view transitions and animations and these kind of pretty things once the app is doing all of the stuff that we want it to do. So the big thing that I want to tackle today, we have this completion toggle here in our details view, but this over here is just a static icon. And we want to make it similarly interactive, allow us to complete the task from the task list. So let's figure out how to do that. I don't think I need this for right now. Let's actually just close all of it. So in main, here, our task element. Let's just collapse some of this. So we have this static icon right now, and we want to make it interactive. Let's remind ourselves how we made our toggle switch interactive. So it is a button to. Button twos are great. As a side note, data turbo method is bad. Button twos good. Data turbo method bad. Just a quick hot take. So we call update on a particular task. In this case, we set a custom param that does not map to a database value, so completed toggle. And we permitted that in our controller And in our model, we just did this, which is sort of ignoring the fact that the value is toggle. It's like, just whatever, we're just going to toggle it. And it just toggles completed at on or off. That's not the behavior that we want here. But I do think that a button tag is going to be the right foundation. Text. Now, one small detail here. Unfortunately, the icon library that I am using doesn't have a rounded rectangle that sort of borders on Squircle. That's what Superlist uses, right? These are Squircle-ish. Bootstrap has these. I played around a little bit with taking what Bootstrap does have, the closest shape it has, it calls app, which is the roundedest square that they have, and just smashing two icons together, not really smashing them together, overlaying them, to create this interaction, right? Because they have this hover interaction. And were we to just use this icon, we would need to put the check square icon. Let me actually just say I want square icons. We would have to put both the check square icon and just the regular square icon on the page and hide and reveal them based on the hover state, sort of create that interaction, which could work, but this could also work. I don't know, but I think I'll play around with this for now, just because visually it looks a little bit closer, the rounding, to what we are trying to copy. But let me take a step back here and think about how we want this to work. I just want to see visually what this is looking like. Yeah, putting it in this pill. Don't want all of that. That's better. Don't think we need background. Or a background on hover. Then let's set the size Okay, we don't need to do that. That's fine. Want to remind myself of the DOM that we're looking at here. Yeah, so the classes that we put here go to the button. So if we sort of take this, we don't want size 12. Let's sort of cut everything in half for size 6. I want it to be relatively positioned to make it a group. Then we are going to put the check to icon and the app icon together. The check to icon will be size 5 and absolute inset x0 mx auto. This will center it on the x-axis, top, say 3 pixels, cut it in half, and invisible, but when the group is hovered, make it visible. And this is size 6, same size as the button, and inset 0. See what this looks like. Ah, it is completed. We're not getting the background animation because the way that Bootstrap icons work, they have a little bit of like padding, the way that they draw them, just to sort of show you that. You see? I was playing around with it a little bit before and just couldn't figure it out. Let's drop our text hovering, so let's not change that, but let's set a different text color for the check to make it a bit lighter relative to the app icon, the square, which is, so by default, text slate 500, dark text slate 400. So let's go up to oops, wrong direction. I'm gonna make this else block meaningful in just a bit. Let's just try, see what size 4 looks like. It's kind of, close to its bounding box here. We need to move it down a bit more. To me, that is a bit too dark. So I'm just going to bring it up one. Yeah. Which means likely in light mode. We should do it like that too. Check that out. Okay. That looks nice. So the inbox view isn't going to, let's undo, oops, sorting. It drops completed ones. So we need to find view here, like here, where they keep them. Can I target and give the G element the BG? So there isn't a G element. I tried to put it on path, but let's add a G element. So path, it did not work. I can show you that just to show, but G element's a good idea. We can try that. Oh, right. This is going to hide everything. So nothing there, but if we wrap this in a G, let's see if no. And unfortunately, the way that these icons are drawn, the fill is this, and the stroke is this. So, yeah. This is fixable. I mean, I can also just go and for these icons, get a couple of other icons from somewhere else that are drawn differently and more amenable to this, but we're not there. So checked state, we get an orange box. I'm not going to be able to do the orange box either. So maybe I should try and get a different icon. That's not good. Let's try. That doesn't have what we want. What are some other icon sets? Anybody in chat remember any icon sets? I'm going to take a drink here. Of course. Font awesome. The OG. How did I forget about you? Icons. Check. I just want free ones that I can use. So there's a square check. Let's play. Can't see anything here. So a similar problem. Let's go ahead and just make this smaller. And on the path, nothing. If we do fill, that's and they don't use a stroke. So That's a good point. Fair point. Good point. Let's try the solid one. And then let's say fill equal, come on now, green or orange. This is an argument to just use. My eyes. Where is square check? Come here. I bet you it's the same for this one. Thank you, Marco. Your brain is a little bit less foggy than mine. Yeah. Okay, check square fill. Let's get all the way back to this. Drop this. So let's come in here to the play. We need to write a fancy Tailwind class. To target the path. Like I want to no. Let's say that the stroke is the current color, and then I make no, not current color. Do I have? I want to have fine grain control over stroke color. Okay, cool. Stroke red 200. Oh, let's go back to font awesome. Same thing. I want an SVG icon where I can target the fill color, which is black here, make that whatever color I want, target the stroke color, and make that whatever color I want, and that just change this check mark. Pardon me. Because then I could do my hover stuff. I could do all of that quite easily. To sort of make the check appear on hover by changing the stroke color from the same as the fill color to some contrasting color. Let's just see what they're doing. That's around the edge as well. Going back. So when it is completed, we don't care about that. I just want to show it. And I think we gave this a different color as well. And this is gonna bleed out. So another problem that we are going to ignore for now, but that is okay. Hey, Andrea. So we'll just, forget about the background. I'm trying, by the way, just to do a bit of an aside. This is a skill I'm actively and intentionally trying to practice, which is not allowing myself to get bogged down and distracted by non-essential details for longer than a couple of minutes, right? Like I want to give myself the freedom to explore it, to see, can I figure something out in 5 minutes, 10 minutes, what have you. But if I can't, to remind myself within 5 or 10 minutes, hey, whether or not we have the exact same tinted background hover effect, not important. The key thing that is important is to have a understandable, usable, UI, right? So being able to clearly represent when we have tasks that are checked and when we have tasks that are completed and tasks that are not completed, um, and showing you that this little checkbox is interactable and is going to complete if you interact with it, that task. That is essential. And I think that we have that. That is sufficient. Going to do the same sort of thing here as we did back here, except I'm not going to use an H1. Let's just use like a paragraph tag. Just do text base. Don't think right now I need an ID. Yeah, looks nice. Now, it's a bit too big. And I wonder why that is, to be honest. I'm just going to go back to what we had and see what was happening there. 24 by 24. (616 pixels wide). The form tag is taller. Pushing some stuff down. Why are you, let's say, you are also size 6. Why is it not lined up? Let's do that is that's frustrating. What is happening here? This is already a line block. That's what we want. This one is stumping me a little bit. Why is there this gap at the top? Why are they not all taking up the same 24 by 24 pixels? Let's see what happens. Let's just move this stuff up to the form class. But it still has pushed, pushed this stuff over a tad. That is better. Just want to see what. Oh, this is already 10 out of 12. I should. Okay. Need to do them both 10 out of 12. Okay. We're making progress. It's a bit slow. My brain is not working at its absolute peak. The fact that it's almost 1 a.m. for me and I take breaks and drink Radler probably has something to do with it. But that's why I like having smart people in the chat. So you can undo it. So I think we can actually keep our completion toggling logic. Let's see. I mean, that is nice. We are interacting over here, and we need the state to be reflected in 4 different places in the DOM. This checkbox changes. This bit of the UI changes. This changes, and this title changes. And look at that. I confess, stuff like that genuinely brings joy to my heart. So one thing to note that is happening here, let's see what happens over here. So in this interaction, and this is on a particular list, not on the inbox. On the inbox, they disappear. All kinds of small details. We don't have lists yet. But updating the... But why do you need a full page refresh for that? Yeah, these are the kinds of questions people always like to ask. But this is part of my hope for building this, going through the process of building it together, and then once we're done, like having this artifact, is to demonstrate the kind of UI fidelity that we can build without having to reach for these really fine-grained DOM updating techniques, right? So turbo streams and turbo frames are very cool features, and I'm happy that we have them. And there are absolutely 100% use cases in which they are both valuable and necessary. But I do think that it is easy for us to overestimate how often they are necessary. You really can build high fidelity, modern, fast, responsive web applications without trying to implement, 200 coarsely grained, precise DOM updates, right? Like that is definitionally spaghetti. It's a different kind of spaghetti, and it's probably honestly worse because it's split between your front end and your back end. And you have to keep those two things in sync, right? Like we sort of trade the problem of keeping state in sync between the front end and the back end for the problem of keeping our code in sync between the front end and the back end. And that's certainly a good trade-off. Like objectively, that's good because you're a little bit less likely to have bugs put in front of users. But you're not completely less likely. You're still opening yourself up to a number of bugs when you reach for coarsely grained DOM updates. And I hope that one of the takeaways that we as a Rails community can glean from this application is that modern web tools, modern web techniques, which are now supported by the tooling in and around Rails, can allow us to build a rich, modern, interactive web application without reaching for these coarsely grained DOM updating techniques. Anyway, tiny sermon over. Coming back to the point here, in this interaction, this is a non-navigating update. Here, let me make this abundantly clear. It is. And of course it is. On update, when it works, we redirect to the show page. So we render the show page. This is something to do. Let's just write it to do. I need to think a little bit about how I want to do this. Maybe we point at different controllers. We sort of isolate our controllers for these kinds of interactions. Maybe we use a query parameter. Maybe we introspect the source of the update, right? We can change. What do I mean by that? Let me be a little bit more precise. When you have a form and a button that is updating it, you action update. You sometimes, I guess this is the default when you are using submit input types. You get a commit. Is that the name of the attribute or is that the default value? I'd have to go back really to look at the Rails docs, but This is a pattern that I've used a few times, right? Where you change this default form parameter that is passed along to distinguish between two different sources, interaction sources on the front end that point to the same controller action. We could do that. We could append a query parameter to the URL. We could add another parameter to the form. Whoops. Add another parameter to the form. And here, there's a few different ways to tackle this. I don't have a thought yet on the right one to do. Ensure that toggling completion from the details section redirects to task, but toggling from the main section redirects to task path. So a to-do. Let's leave it alone for now. Now that I fixed this, I want to put this back. Yeah, there we go. Much better. Let's do a commit. Let's say upgrade the static checkbox icon to an actual button tag to toggle task completed at. Add a to-do comment about redirection after task update. Okay, a couple things. Firstly, side note, I have no idea when my wife is going to be coming back from going dancing. So I kind of have no idea when this stream is going to end. I also don't know like when my brain is just going to start actively shutting down. Second thought, let's try to add one more piece of functionality. And I want to do something that won't take super long. So I'm scanning these to think about the ones that are relatively easy. This one is relatively easy. We can do it in steps. We can just pick, one particular action. Well, I need to fix that Z index problem. One particular action and implement it. This one would be relatively easy. We can just turn on action text and connect it. Complicated. Less complicated. These all are a little bit more complicated. Let's start with task description. Let's give that a go. Come on, hands. What do we call this? I think it's action text install. Don't mind my dog. Install action text. This adds some gems. install them. Just hanging out, waiting for some gems to install. By the way, Marco, isn't this a Swiss brand? I think I remember seeing that somewhere. Maybe they talk about it on the bottles. Ah, Österreich, yeah. So it's Austrian. And it generates migrations. This is one of my favorite things that I discovered upon moving to Germany. I have never been a big hoppy beer fan. IPAs and that sort of part of the beer spectrum. But in Germany, and that's like very much like what's the standard popular kind of beer for men in the US. But in Germany, it is quite popular to have Radler, which is like a Pils plus lemonade sometimes, Sprite sometimes. Depends on the exact brand, but it's sort of like a shandy if you've had shandies in the US, but a little bit better balanced in my opinion. But when I am at the house, I don't drink it a ton, but it's like the only beer that I buy. It's quite nice. Okay, so we have action text installed and set up. Yeah. Yeah, maybe it's just generally popular in Western Europe. Whatever it is, I so prefer beer culture in Europe than I do in the US, because even if it's not like a Radler, like in Germany, wheat beers and lagers are much more popular than IPAs. So in general, I can find, buy, and enjoy beers in public in Germany without feeling a little bit, I don't know, emasculated in a way that I don't quite in the US, because all the real men drink IPAs and I just don't like them at all. Add description to tasks. Yeah, wait, I don't need a migration. What am I doing? It's late, you guys. Don't mind me. We don't need a migration for this. We could just add it straight to our model. We have a rich text description. And then here, not in our header, I think we're going to need another form. And then inside of that form dot rich text area description. Yeah. You know, at some point, I hope that Zed adds like Emmet shortcuts and maybe some ERB shortcuts. But after typing just tons of ERB, I have found that to be simplest. Let's see what this looks like. Let's. Oh, right. What's. Oh, yes, of course. I really should like put in the pull request to fix this because action text does not know how to install itself into a Tailwind Rails project. Have other people seen this? Does action text not have dark mode support? Am I seriously gonna have to like why, God, why? Hard-coded color. I don't know. I don't know how to change the style. My light mode styles are not perfect. How does tricks / action text not have dark mode styles? That's just another pull request I'm going to have to do. Let's come in here really briefly and fix this. This was a mistake. Maybe 200 by default. Yeah, Basecamp doesn't use it. Yes. I mean, yes, that is the reason. But come on. How does Basecamp not use it? Where is our main? This. Typo. There we go. Back here. I'll drop this border. I see you. Let's put that here. Okay, better. We need to fix this. Let's go up one more. Still looks a bit light. That's better. And then down here, always prefix it BG. 300. 200. Of course there is. There's an open issue on the Tricks repo. Well, at some point I will just write that CSS into the action text CSS file. Yeah. Andrea's reminding us that Basecamp does have dark mode, does support dark mode, and in dark mode, their Trix editor looks good. Just hasn't made its way back to Trix yet. That's okay. Let me do a quick commit here just to get these style fixes. Fix the light mode styles. Fix action text / Trix style sheets when used in Tailwind app. And how do I want to do a dummy version of this? I'm trying to remember if there is like a, maybe it's like shift enter. Let's say form dot submit class only. Let me say hello world. Is there any way to submit the form while you are in the rich text area? Yeah, I'm trying command enter. Is it? It's not saving. Command enter is not. Well, that's okay. For now, I'm gonna write a to-do. Support command enter to submit form. Yeah, I added this this guy. Oh, okay. Don't yell at me. So he or she or it, whatever you want to think of input type submit elements, its name. That's so name is the attribute, commit is the value. You can change that value to have multiple submit inputs for a form. And then you can pull the name param out and have like a case statement for different types of submission sources. Just to close the gap on that previous conversation. We have the input type submit. You can't see. I need to figure out a way, but then I guess you just see a ton of typing. Anyway, I am doing command enter right now, but to no avail. So, writing a to-do because we are out here moving fast. That's what we're doing. Oh, sort of going the other way with it. Yeah, it's going lighter. These widths are much more different than I remember them being. 740, 732. 740 plus 732 divided by 740. No, I meant to say that. Yeah, I mean, that's not a 55-45 split. Our rich text toolbar has widened our details. Another thing, another to do. Add task, description, rich text field. I wanted to say, let's make this taller. Ooh. That's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted either. If I do that, I guess I need a little bit of bottom. Okay, let's do that. And then, yeah, I'll just stay rows 10 for now, but I'll add. Okay. And let's put a placeholder. Start typing. Just start typing already. approve the task description rich text field styling. Well, I guess for the time being, I just need a submit button. So you know what? There's a chance that it has been working this whole time. Strong params. I would bet you that basically every single Rails developer coding at 1:30 in the morning is going to forget their strong params. Happens to the best of us. Let's see, does that fix our... Here I come. Command enter, refresh. No, command enter is still not working. Womp womp. Let me just do a quick Google search. How to submit form while within TRIT's rich text area. No, that's not what I want. I don't see it in the README. Maybe the action text overview. Rendering. Nope. Yeah, this is the kind of thing. Whoops. That is worth researching outside of the stream. Okay, so let's just put our button back. Ugly button. Permit the task description parameter in the controller. Whoopsie daisy. Display the form submission button until we figure out How to submit the form with a keyboard shortcut. Let me go ahead. Write it to do. Add dark mode styles. I'll add some GitHub issues as well. So not the prettiest, but we have a task description field. I'm feeling a little bit drawn towards the labels. So let's just sprint a little bit on those. So for anyone who hasn't seen the whole series, just a quick refresher. This Rails application is using SQLite for the database. And I am about to apply a pattern that I use frequently for SQLite databases to have a kind of partial association without creating a new table, which is the conceptual equivalent to Postgres's array column type. Add labels to tasks. Labels, JSON. Whoops, yes. This is a migration. So here's what we do. We create a JSON column. We're going to give it a default value of an empty array. Then we are going to add a check constraint. And this is not quite right. What we were going to do, let's go here, SQLite tag, page 3, nope, page 2, array columns. What we are going to do is we're going to add a check constraint to our tasks table. Which looks like this. This is labels. This is a task. Simple check constraint. We say that we want to ensure that for our labels column, the JSON type is an array. Pretty straightforward. Then what we can do is on our task model, we can define an attribute. We say type array and default. Add a check constraint to ensure task labels is an array. Also add active record attribute definition. Let's run this migration. And so now, just to play around a little bit, let's create a task. Let's say title console. Our task, we ask for its labels. We get back an empty array. And shove a label in there. We can save that task. There's a label. We have a typecast. It's an array. We can see that it is a JSON serialized array of strings in the database. So it's a simple little pattern. It doesn't bring like the same, SQLite doesn't have the same gen index as Postgres, so you can't index it as simply or aggressively as you can in Postgres, but that's okay. That is fine in our case. So we're going to want to not forget about strong params this time, labels. Let's do a quick refresher on the UX here. Let me put, so there's this fancy thing, which we're not starting with the fancy thing, which is like adding labels in line by searching for them. Let's just talk about this UX. So ignore search. Just looking down here, what do we have? So we have this full bleed background hover. The entirety of this is clickable. If you select a label, icon goes orange. We see a checkbox on the right. That is orange. We see a permanent background as well. And we see the label displayed up here. We can select a second one. We get the list shown up top. Same behavior here. You can deselect. And when you have at least one label selected, you get this clear button. And the clear button does precisely what we will expect it to do. Deselects everything. So let's see how much of that we can build, just to show you what we have right now in terms of the UI. Z-index issues. As a reminder, we are going to be replacing all of these detail summary elements, which are using absolutely positioned details contents to create these little popovers, and use the new popover API, which is going to solve these z-index issues. But right now, we have not done that. I think solving the z-index issue. I guess let me take 2 minutes and explain what the hell we just did and why we did it. Whenever you see a z-index issue like this, what you are likely to think and to do at first is, let me take this box that I have absolutely positioned, most likely, and increase its z-index. Right? That's like the natural thought to have. The problem is that it's not going to fix anything. You know, you still have the problem. I have just learned from repeated trial and error to remind myself of the true source of the problem, which is that you have visually related parts of the DOM which are not directly connected in the DOM that both have some z-index applied to them. So in this case, it's like these buttons in our tricks editor. So what you have to do to solve the problem, you have to find the common sibling pair of these two parts of the DOM, right? So I have a conflict here. My conflict is between this tricks toolbar and this div here. That's my z-index conflict. In order to resolve that z-index conflict, I have to find which ancestor of this and which ancestor of this are siblings of each other, right? So in this case, because I've just been building this app the last few days, so it's all very much in my head, I immediately know what their shared, what is their shared parent? And then you just come down one, that's where you have siblings. So I know that there is an article that has a header and a section, right? And so I know that the siblings are the header and the section. So these are the siblings. Once you find the siblings that are the respective ancestors of our conflicting elements, you need to give them a z-index. Now, as a reminder, z-index is not going to do anything as a CSS attribute unless you have an appropriate position. Well, in this case, it did. Yeah. maybe I'm wrong, maybe you don't always need it. So I come here, just throw the Z index, right? And just as another small reminder, right, what the default for the browser is that elements that are later in the DOM will break Z index ties. So if you don't have a Z index specified, then defaults to like effectively 0. So header and section here have the same Z index implicitly, but section comes after header, so it will win in that tie. And because it has an descendant that has a Z index applied, that sort of migrates its way up, and you see the conflict. So when we come up to header, give it a Z index that is larger than the default of 0, it sits back on top. So when we put 10 on it, we solve that problem. We're going to have similar issues here, right? This coming out, this coming over. Have to do the same sort of thing, but we'll do that later. We got that. In this initial sort of UI build, have the clear button just always present because that's simpler to build. Probably leave that for now. In light mode, side note, that orange is a bit light. Let's bump up that. Bump up that orange. Whoop, got another SVG we need to replace. Whoop, we got a couple. Uh-oh. Not done. Icon. A reminder, this is our little view helper, which uses our SVG sprite file. Ooh, no, we got all this. Whoops. Let's not miss any of those classes. So size 3, text slate 500, group hover label, text slate 600, peer checked, text orange 600. And then we'll say on dark, peer checked text orange 500. And then we want to throw our check to icon down here. Grab all of these classes. So we've only applied this to the first one. And we're also not retaining a background. Ooh, I need a quick refresher on how to use the has modifier. Yeah, okay. So we're going to say has checked, then BG slate 200. Oh, the whole background is 200. I really wish there was like a 250. So I have to do 300, 400. Interesting. Our has selector wins out over our hover selector. It looks like what is that's the exact same color. No, no, not what I meant to do. Oh, okay, right. I didn't change this. Let's just duplicate all of this. Just change this text just so we can actually keep our heads straight. So, as I was saying, our has selector is taking precedence over our hover selector. In their implementation, it is interesting. There's like 3 different shades. Bit of a mess. I don't know. It still feels a bit too bright to me. It might just be. Losing my mind a little bit, but let's try bumping it up one more. Yeah, that looks a little bit less aggressive. I know theirs is like fairly bright, but it honestly like kind of hurts my eyes a bit. I like this more. Okay. Coming back, let's make this actually functional. So, what are we going to need to do to make it functional? We're going to want to take all of the labels for all of the tasks in our database and show them in a list. And we want that list to generate, I don't need 2 of them, this kind of DOM. Should not have closed that tab. I think that I included yes, a link to a gist. So if you haven't heard of this really cool gem, let me quickly introduce it to you. Tag Columns by the one and only Hopsoft, Nate Hopkins. This is a very cool gem, which currently is targeted to the Postgres array column type. But it allows you to have this like column on your table, but it will give you, in addition to these individual record methods, which are nice, it also gives you these class methods. And you can find, in this case, this is the method that we want, find all of the unique tags across all users in this case. And this is called like groups. The column name is called groups there. I used this on a couple of projects, really liked it, wanted the same functionality for SQLite. You can read the blog post where I talk a little bit about the logic of this SQL, but for now, I'm not going to sit here and do all of that. I'm just going to copy and paste. So this is a model concern. I'm going to call it array columns. And then task is going to include array columns. And we are going to declare labels an array column. What is that going to give us? Well, all of the methods we saw from Nate, but in our case, what we are distinctly interested in, so I was trying to remind myself of the method name, is task unique labels. Okay. This is worth a commit. Let's do it steps at a time. Bring in the array columns model concern. Wire up task labels as an array column. Ensure that the tasks controller permits task labels params. Okay, so what do we need for our implementation? We're going to need to be able to get our task labels, the full set of unique labels. We are also going to then need to build a collection of checkboxes. Well, Rails has a handy dandy form helper for this called collection checkboxes. Let's go read a little bit about that. So, right, we're using a form builder helper, so we don't have to pass this. We pass it our attribute name, labels. Then we give it some kind of enumerable. So in our case, that's this. And that enumerable, as a reminder, is an array of strings. Then, just to come up here, we give it a value method and a text method. So a method to call on each item in our enumerable to extract the value, and a method to call on each item in the enumerable to extract the text that will be shown in the label. So in our case, this is an array of strings. So it is the same methods, which is itself, just give us back that string. Then we have options we can pass and HTML options. They talk about the options, right? Include blank, prompt, index, disabled, blah, blah, blah. We don't need any options. And I don't think we need any of that. And it optionally takes a block to which it passes a builder. Let's see where they talk about this. So that block has a few different helpers, that builder object. You can get the label element, the checkbox element. You can also get the value and the text. So let's take this and implement it. So we want a label that is wrapping. Whoa, sorry about that. Some stuff. We want our checkbox. We then want our tag icon. We then want our builder.text. Then we want our check icon. Let's get our classes wired up. Let's give that a whirl. And let's come back here. And let's say task dot first. Yep, it's got nothing. So we're going to need to save this. So let me put it in a variable. Reminder. Now we're cooking. So we are building the structure that we want. What is the next step? I think that we want to automatically submit the form as soon as we select a label, select or deselect a label. Let's really quickly commit some of this, fix a z index issue with the pop overs in the header, inflicting the tricks toolbar. Wire up the task labels, pop over to build an actual form. I don't know, widget, don't know what else to call it. So there are a bunch of the stimulus controller, form, auto submit. The stimulus components collection by Guillaume is a place I go regularly, but it will not surprise you to learn that I don't tend to install the actual like package. I prefer to copy and paste. So we'll call this an autosave controller. Get rid of this TypeScript because I am not using TypeScript. Okay, it's got a utils. We do not need to do all of that. Let's make it a private function. And then we will call it. And we will import it. I need to get more habituated to using this generator to save myself doing this mess. But that's okay. So let us remind ourselves how to wire it up. So we want to put it on our form. And then, look at this, checkbox example, just waiting for us. Let's clear this. Clear this again. Ooh, let me just come in here. See, I'm actually not sure that a new stimulus controller automatically gets picked up. I don't recall off the top of my head, so let's presume that it doesn't. Hey, look at that. And we can confirm that this is working by now updating this. But before I do that, let me really quickly bring in, oh, I almost forgot. I'd like to now remind myself where I got it from so I can check back and pull it in. You know, I've talked about on a previous stream a tool I want to build to like automate some of this, but for now I do it manually. A stimulus controller for auto saving forms. Wire up the task labels checkboxes to auto save form in the details header section. Let me push up these changes. I don't think we need this anymore. Anyway, what I was saying is we can now say inside of the summary here, well, I was going to say 2-sentence, but I don't think that it 2 sentences things. Let's come here. Create one more. Yeah, it's just joining. So let's just do that. Hey, wanted to do a commit. Goodness, I missed these SVGs. Show the assigned labels for the task. Okay, my brain is starting to shut down, but I want to try to finish one last thing, which is wiring up the clear button to actually clear all of these. And I keep hitting the wrong keyboard shortcut, making it ugly now that we have the rich text area. I have maybe an idea. I'm trying to think of if there is a way to do this without JavaScript. And I'm not sure that there is. There is for radios. There is for radios because you can sort of make it a third option. But I'm not sure that there is for checkboxes. Clear checkboxes. HTML only. Because it's not quite form reset, you know? Yeah, I don't think we have one. I bet you, though, that the stimulus control components collection has some checkbox stuff. A stimulus controller for managing checkbox lists. That sounds right. Ooh, hair's getting stuck in my headphones. Target. Waiting. I didn't see any attribute that had an action on it that actually did something. So close. We're not going to need this exact thing. We don't need to toggle. We just need to remove. I remember that I built a stimulus controller. Controller. Checkbox set from Hot Table. Maybe that. Let's see what that looks like. Parent, child, count, checkbox controller. Let's look at this one. Okay, this is adapted from what he has. I can just tell, just having looked at the source we just did. Checkbox controller. This one's probably the same. Let's look at this one. Yeah, this one's the same. Just to confirm, this one's probably the same. This one is the same. This one looks the closest. Okay, we don't need a count. I don't even think we need to target a parent. We can just have an action. Don't need a totals value. Child targets for each. I don't think I need any of that. Don't think I need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need to call that. I think I only need this. So let's give this a whirl. Actually, I don't need to put it way up here. I can scope it. I can put it down here, data controller. Pardon me. Checkboxes. And then data action, data checkboxes, target, child. I don't like that. It's not the most appropriate name now that we don't have like a parent. But, you know, okay. Data action, check boxes, deselect all. Oh, almost forgot. And oh, application controller. No. We don't have one of those. We only have one of these. There we go. Okay. So that part works. That is nice. We are preventing default on the event, which I believe is the reason why this action that was bound to the checkboxes is not getting fired. But we should be able to grab the associated form and submit it. But I don't recall the JavaScript for that. JS get form associated with input. So form attribute. Let's just check that. Let's say this dot child targets first dot form. Nice. And then we want to make sure that we are submitting that form in the turbo appropriate way. To submit a form. Yeah. Okay. So after we change their state, we can just tell the form to submit. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Not too bad. I don't know. I like to be explicit. It just makes life easier. Add a check boxes stimulus controller. Wire up the clear button for the task labels form widget to deselect all, and then submit the form. Okay. So we have labels. I mean, it's the core stuff, as well as, if I'm being fair, the easier stuff is built. So for any of the existing labels, we can assign them. We are going to want to fix that to keep this popover open after submission. Maybe data turbo permanent solve this problem. Not sure. We can clear all of the labels, and all of that is reflected up here. precisely the way that we want. Let's just try quickly. Data turbo permanent. Not quite. Worth a try. Okay, I am tired. So I'm going to stop the stream now, but let me really quickly review everything that we got done today. So we have constrained our custom view transition animation to only take effect when we are navigating from the index view to the show view. That animation right there. Otherwise, we don't use that animation. That's the first thing we did. The second thing we did, we built and wired up this checkbox toggle interactive widget, another button 2 element here, to toggle the completed at value for our task. It has the hover effect. We are showing the state of the task. It has the side effect of navigating, something we want to tweak, but most importantly, it has a side effect of changing the state. So that is what we want. And then we were able to add a description field to our tasks. This description field does not have dark mode styles and does not currently have a way to submit the form without having this button visually present. So some more to-dos, but progress. And then finally, we added a labels array column to our tasks table in our SQLite database. And we wired up this popover, fixing a z-index issue along the way, to actually update that database column in the way that we want and have the UI represent clearly and truthfully the state of the labels assigned to this task. So what next? We're going to want to actually allow for someone to create a label from the front end, create the label and assign it. We are going to want to bring this widget over to here, wire it up. That'll be simple. That's just copying and pasting. We'll get that over pretty easy. We want to resolve these to-dos. We want this not to navigate us from the index page to the show page. We want to not have the need for this button. We want to have dark mode styles for our rich text area. And then, did I not assign myself? No, I did. Oh, there it is. And then I think we might start looking at lists and our sorting widget and continuing to explore improving our use of morphing turbo drive navigation, and view transitions, polishing that those interactions in that set of interactions. So this was a longer stream, a looser stream, a late night stream, but a productive stream. So I look forward to the next one, which will be some point tomorrow.